then the Parliament will do it. Then where will we stop? So my humble submission is that could not have been the intention of the framers of the Constitution, that to give power to Parliament, because there are separation of power doctrines there. Once the Honorable Supreme Court has made the rules regarding regulating the practice procedure, the Parliament does not. But that practice and procedure, the rules, cannot be in violation of any constitutional provision or any law which existed, sir.
So the core
Substantive law.
question is, where does the Constitution confer, in which institution confer the power to make rules?
Ji.
Whether it is the Parliament or is it the Supreme Court?
Ji.
If it is the Supreme Court, the only restriction is that the Supreme Court can do so within the framework of the Constitution and the existing law.
My lord.
And that's it.
Yes,
the
my lord.
Parliament cannot, because the power does not vest in the Constitution in the Parliament in terms of Article 199.
191, my lord.
जी,
191.
Next point.
My humble submission on this score is
Next
that
point,
that's the reason I was saying.
I would really want to hear you, Mr. Zubairi.
Sir, my lord is asking a question.
नहीं वो आप बात तो करें फिर सवाल उठेगा
सर
यकीनन।
पूछ रहे हो, इसी बात से सवाल उठाए सर जी।
Now, if I may ask you, these words subject to the Constitution, if these words were not there at all, and the Supreme Court were to make rules, and someone were to point out, well, sir, this proposed rule X is contrary to the Constitution, the answer would presumably be, the Supreme Court would say, well, okay, yes, you're right, so we can't make rule X, right? So in that sense, saying subject to the Constitution is always redundant.
Yes.
Because it's always going to be there.
There.
Seems to me, but this is the question, that perhaps there's a more subtle point here. The Constitution, of course, can also be amended. Yes?
Yes,
Under
madam.
article. But by and large, the Constitution is regarded at any given time to be fixed. Right? This is it. Underneath it, whatever happens by the judiciary, by the executive, by the legislature. So maybe the point in saying subject to the Constitution is not to make the obvious point that everything is always subject to the Constitution. Everyone knows that. But rather to fix the position of law, that when the rules are being made, what you just said,
Yeah, Lord.
when the rules are being made by saying subject to the Constitution and the law can only be as at that
time, sir, when the rules are
maybe
framed.
this is the point that is being made here, because
Yes.
otherwise I was thinking about this, and I've been thinking about this since the case started. Why say subject to the Constitution? Because everything is always subject to the Constitution.
Constitution.
Mr.
Maybe
Zubairi,
that's a
I
more
just want to
subtle
say
point.
one thing. The day we hear this case, the weeks we hear this case, our institution exceeds our disposal. The day we don't, our disposal exceeds our execution. If you think this is a never-ending hearing, this is the last day of the hearing.
My lord.
Please remember that. You can argue till 11:30, and each one of us may have their views. Let them be expressed in judgments. I want to hear counsel.
Sir, when a
I mean, if
question-
you,
My lord,
please continue. We will restrain ourselves. You just continue your argument so we can be enlightened what you want to tell us, and we can record it, and we can either agree with you or disagree with you in our judgments.
Sir, my lord,
Up आगे बढ़िए, please. Next point.
If a
Please
judge asks me
go
a
on to
question,
the
I have to
next.
respond
Please
it,
go
sir.
on to the next
Ji.
point.
So my point is that, again, my lord, that when the law is being given to the Parliament, the
ये तो
specific
आप
words
repeat
is-
ना करो ना,
जी,
point
इस पे,
करो।
तो hence subject to law, and for that I want to take you, my lord, I have placed certain case law before lordship, if my lord has that.
जी दीजिए,
जी।
दे दिए या देंगे?
ये रखे हुए हैं सर,
पहले से नहीं दिए?
सर दिए हैं, बहुत पहले से दिए हैं, रखे हुए हैं।
आज?
नहीं सर, मतलब उन्होंने कहा जब आप आर्ग्यू करेंगे उस वक्त दीजिएगा, मैं तो कब हर रोज लेके आ रहा हूँ सर।
Sorry, this is most unfair. हमने कहा था लोगों को फाइल कर दें।
तो ये केस हम
हाँ, but ठीक है, you are right, we are wrong.
नहीं सर,
We have told everybody to file. हाँ भी कागज के टुकड़े आ रहे हैं बीच में से। और ये कोई आसान चीज है पढ़ना।
इस लॉ है सर, इसमें।
तो पहले नहीं कर सकते थे फाइल।
जी।
इन दुनिया में ऐसे होता है या सिर्फ निजाम अदल पाकिस्तान में ऐसा चलेगा? बाकी दुनिया की हम तारीख में बताते हैं। ये जरा प्लीज ठहर जाइए ना कि अमेरिका में क्या होता है, विलायत में होता है। आप ये करें अमेरिका अमराइलायत में जाकर के, फिर क्या होगा आपके साथ? वहाँ तो आप सारे वेस्टर्न ट्रेडिशंस बताते हैं, इस्लामिक ट्रेडिशंस तो बताते नहीं हैं। अगर कागज के मामले में ठीक है भाई, मेरी मर्जी जब मैं करूँ। सच ए सीनियर काउंसिल।
My lord, may I take page 144 of this? Is a case.
या आप हमें proposition बताएं, पहले
Proposition
proposition
is
बताया
subject to
जाता
law.
है।
How a subject to law has to be interpreted. That is my.
ठीक है, बता दें केस का नंबर।
Page, its case is page 144 of this booklet, sir.
जी।
Winberry versus Salisbury. It's a case from the American jurisdiction, and they have interpreted this word, what is the meaning of, and their constitution also provided this thing.
Their constitution also permits filing of documents in courts. चलिए खैर,
जी।
144।
Sir, this is just a
ये
case law which
सुप्रीम
I'm
कोर्ट का है,
citing.
ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट का
No,
जजमेंट।
sir. It is Supreme Court of New Jersey, sir.
अच्छा ठीक है।
जी. My lord, page 145, if my lord kindly sees the sixth line from the top.
देखिए वो जरा मुनासिब नहीं लगता है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ पाकिस्तान फुल बेंच में, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ न्यू जर्सी का जरा ठहर तो जाइए ना। हमें हमारा लेवल इतना लो तो ना कर दें। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ अमेरिका तो बताइए, आप सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ न्यू जर्सी को हम फॉलो करेंगे।
सर मैं सिर्फ बता रहा हूँ कि
हाँ
उन्होंने
बता
इस-
दें, जबानी
उनके-
बता दें, हम आपकी बात में ज्यादा वजन है बल्कि
सर,
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ न्यू जर्सी में।
उनके कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में इस तरह का लफ्ज नहीं है, लेकिन उनके जो स्टेट्स हैं उनके कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में इस तरह के लफ्ज हैं। Kindly see, the Supreme Court shall make rules governing the administration of all courts in state and subject to law the practice and procedure of all such courts. This is the law which they interpreted. And my lord, it says, para 2 on page 145,
The phrase subject to law.
the phrase subject to law is not only ambiguous but elliptical. No
What
word
is elliptical mean?
Sir, मतलब कि it is confusing.
बताइए।
जी.
You reading a word,
जी।
you tell us the meaning of the word.
Continuous, sir. Continuous. No word in the law has more varied meaning than the term law itself. Nor is the phrase subject to crystal clear, for the phrase implies a limitation rather than a grant of power. It is argued by plain subject law means subject to statute or legislation.